Tommy Lee Jones spent his whole life running from a violent childhood. His father beat him. His marriages didn't work out. He drank a lot and pushed people away. Now, at almost 80 years old, everything is falling apart. At a recent movie event, he couldn't even remember working with another actor. Friends say he looked sick and confused. He stopped making movies and stays hidden on his ranch. After playing tough, quiet characters for decades, the mask is finally coming off. The truth about his sad final years is finally coming out. Tommy Lee Jones was born on September 15, 1946, in a tiny Texas town called San Saba. Only about 3,000 people lived there. His family life was messy from the very beginning. His father, Clyde, worked in the oil fields and used to be a cowboy. His mother, Lucille, worked as a police officer, a school teacher, and a beautician, all at the same time. Their marriage didn't last. They got married and divorced not once, but twice. People in town talked about them all the time. Tommy watched his parents fight, leave each other, then come back again and again. Every time they split up, the family had to move. They never stayed in one place for long. Clyde's oil field jobs made things even more unstable. These early years made Tommy guarded and serious. Even as a kid, he kept his feelings locked up tight. But things at home were much worse than what people saw from the outside. His father had a really bad temper. When Tommy was still small, Clyde would come home drunk and tired after working 12-hour shifts in the heat. If Tommy made even a tiny mistake, like tracking mud into their trailer, Clyde would explode. He would beat him hard. The beatings got worse in the early 1950s when oil prices dropped and Clyde couldn't find work for 6 months. In their trailer park in Midland, neighbors could hear screams and furniture crashing late at night. Tommy said later that his childhood had a lot of physical abuse. He had to learn how to read his father's moods just to survive. The blank, stiff look that made him famous in Hollywood came from those early days when showing fear could make things worse. One morning in 1954, something happened that changed everything. Clyde was working at a drill site when a gas pocket suddenly exploded. It was 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. The fireball rose 200 feet into the air. 2 men died. Equipment melted within 50 yards. Clyde had third-degree burns over 30% of his body. He spent 3 months in the hospital. Tommy was only 8 years old but started working small jobs to help his family get by. 5 men were sent to the hospital that day. 2 of them died within 2 days. Tommy saw his father scream in his sleep. That moment taught him that a single explosion could destroy a family's whole world. He never forgot it. Because of his parents' rocky marriage and Clyde's constant job changes, Tommy never stayed in one school very long. By the time he turned 12, he had already been to 7 schools across Texas. In each new town, Midland, Sabinal, Rotan, he had to start over. His grades dropped from A's to C's. At Robert E. Lee High School in Midland, kids with rich families looked down on him. He didn't have much, but he was big, 6'1", 200 pounds, and used that size to fight back. He joined the football team and played like he had something to prove. His hits were hard, too hard. Sometimes he got suspended. But on the field, no one could mess with him. When he was 13, his father got a job in Libya that paid well. But Tommy stayed in Texas. He had earned a scholarship to St. Mark's School in Dallas, one of the top schools in the state. By age 16, he was back on the oil rigs during summers, working next to his father. The shifts lasted 14 hours, and the heat often hit 110 degrees. The work was dangerous. He handled heavy drills, cleaned up chemicals, and stood near machines that could kill a man instantly. In 1962, he saw a co-worker lose 3 fingers right in front of him. Blood sprayed across the drill floor. Help didn't arrive for 45 minutes. That summer, Tommy made $3.50 an hour. He lost 25 pounds and had calluses that never went away. One day, a 500-pound drill bit broke loose and smashed the platform right next to him. It nearly killed him. Those years taught him pain, discipline, and toughness. He never forgot the smell of diesel, or the feeling of almost dying. In 1965, Tommy Lee Jones got into Harvard with a scholarship. His first room was in Mower Hall, B12. Across the hall lived Al Gore, who would later become vice president. They became roommates and stayed together all 4 years. Later, they also lived with Bob Summerby, who would go on to run a media watchdog site. Tommy and Al Gore stayed up late arguing about books and politics. That friendship lasted for decades. Tommy gave a speech for Gore at the 2000 Democratic National Convention. When Gore won the Nobel Peace Prize, Tommy helped host the concert. He graduated in 1969 with a degree in English literature. Harvard, he said, taught him how to learn. And learning, he said, was the heart of acting. At Harvard, he also played football. He wore jersey number 61. He was 6'1", 200 pounds, and played offensive guard on the undefeated 1968 team. That season ended in a game that became legendary. On November 23, 1968, Harvard played Yale. It was 29-13 with just 42 seconds left. Harvard scored twice and tied the game 29-29. The next day, the school newspaper ran the headline, "Harvard beats Yale, 29-29." Tommy was on the field during that final miracle. That game was so famous, it became a documentary in 2008. In 2010, Tommy spoke at a screening of it, standing again in Dunster House. Tommy was also active in Harvard's theater scene. His role in Coriolanus shocked people with how raw and intense it was. Professors and students talked about it for years. It was clear even then he had something rare. He acted alongside John Lithgow in The Ladies Not for Burning in 1967, starting a friendship that lasted decades. When he won the Harvard Arts Medal in 2012, he said college was the best thing that had happened to him creatively. After graduating, he moved to New York. His first professional play was A Patriot for Me, directed by Harold Pinter. That was in 1969. Over the next few years, he appeared in Fortune and Men's Eyes, Four on a Garden, Blue Boys, and Ulysses in Nighttown. To pay the bills, he took a steady role in the soap opera One Life to Live, playing Dr. Mark Toland from 1971 to 1975. His first movie role came in 1970 with Love Story. He played a small part, but it got him noticed. The lead character in that film was based partly on Tommy and Al Gore, who had inspired author Eric Siegel during his time at Harvard. The film made over $130 million and got 7 Oscar nominations. In 1977, Jones starred in The Amazing Howard Hughes, a 2-part TV movie that aired a year after Hughes died. He played Hughes from young genius to broken recluse. Some said it was the most accurate version ever filmed. Jones nailed the voice, the mannerisms, everything. That same year, he was in Rolling Thunder, playing a quiet, wounded Vietnam vet. Critics said he was sensational. In 1978, he starred in Eyes of Laura Mars as a detective chasing a killer through a world of violent fashion photography. The movie made $20 million and became a cult classic. That same year, he led The Betsy, playing a race car driver designing a new car during the energy crisis. But Tommy's heart never left Texas. He built a polo ranch on 55 acres in San Saba, with 48 horse stalls, an arena, and an exercise track. He gave horses and money to Harvard's polo team for over 15 years. Students who trained at his ranch called it boot camp. He also bought a 50-acre polo farm in Florida and sold it in 2013 for $26.75 million. He didn't care about glamour. He played polo on rough dirt during droughts because that's how cowboys did it. That's who he was. When Tommy Lee Jones played Doolittle Lynn in Coal Miner's Daughter back in 1980, it became the start of something big. The movie told the real-life story of country star Loretta Lynn, and it earned over $67 million at the box office, even though it was made for just $15 million. Jones got his first Golden Globe nomination, but it was Sissy Spacek who won the Oscar for Best Actress. The movie was shot completely in Kentucky and Tennessee, which made the story feel more real. There were intense bar scenes that made people wonder if things got rough off camera too. But nobody ever confirmed anything. Nearly 40 years later, in 2019, the Library of Congress chose the film for the National Film Registry, saying it was important to American culture and history. Then, in 1983, Tommy played one of his darkest roles yet. He became Gary Gilmore in The Executioner's Song, a chilling TV movie based on a real man who had killed 2 people and insisted on being executed. Jones won the Emmy for that role. The movie took 4 hours to tell the story and was written by Norman Mailer, who had also written the book. The team behind the film talked to over 120 people to get every detail right. Jones's method acting was so intense that some believed he had gone too far, but no proof ever came out about him putting his health at risk during the role. In 1986, he took over Central Park in a movie called The Park Is Mine. He played a Vietnam veteran who turned the park into a war zone to show how badly veterans were being treated. His friend had left behind weapons and plans before dying, and Jones's character used all of it to make his point. The story felt like something out of a Rambo film, with action scenes and a soundtrack by Tangerine Dream. There were big explosions, but no reports of anyone getting hurt on set. In 1995, he directed and starred in The Good Old Boys, a Western made for TV. It wasn't just another role for him. That's where he met Dawn Laurel, the woman he would eventually marry. At the time, he was 49 and still married to someone else, while Dawn was 31 and working as a camera assistant. They started dating during the film and got married on March 19, 2001, in Texas. Some critics thought the movie was too much of a vanity project, and rumors went around that it went $500,000 over budget, but nothing was confirmed. In The Package, released in 1989, Jones played a prisoner and assassin caught up in a Cold War plot. The timing was awkward because just 3 months later, the Berlin Wall came down, and suddenly the whole premise felt outdated. He worked alongside Gene Hackman and filmed scenes in harsh conditions, but even though some said it was freezing and tough, there were no official reports of injuries or language training pushing him too far. His big Oscar win came in 1993 with The Fugitive. He played Deputy U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard and beat Leonardo DiCaprio and others for Best Supporting Actor. The movie made nearly $370 million globally. But the shocking part wasn't his performance. It was what happened to Harrison Ford. Ford tore his ACL during a chase in the woods and kept filming without telling anyone. He even had a ruptured disc in his back and still did his own stunts. That famous damn jump scene had to be reshot because of failed pyrotechnics. And Ford was in real pain every time. In 1994, Jones let loose in Natural Born Killers. He played a completely insane prison warden, so over the top that director Oliver Stone had to fight the MPAA to avoid an NC-17 rating. The performance was filled with unscripted rants, and studio bosses were furious. Stone had to cut scene after scene until they finally got an R rating on August 26, 1994. Later, the film was blamed for inspiring real-life violence and was ranked one of the most controversial films ever. Then came Batman Forever in 1995. Behind the flashy Two-Face makeup, things got ugly. Jim Carrey approached Jones at a restaurant, and Jones told him straight to his face, "I hate you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery." Carrey had just become Hollywood's comedy king, but Jones didn't want anything to do with his style. The two barely got along during filming, and director Joel Schumacher had to keep the peace. Carrey later said the encounter felt weirdly personal but very real. In Men in Black, released in 1997, Jones returned to comedy and action, but not without chaos. He kept breaking props and injuring camera assistants by accident. Director Barry Sonnenfeld said they had to take the neuralizer out of his hands until the last second. He also made strange sound effects while pretending to shoot, ruining takes without even realizing it. And during one scene in a car shell 15 feet in the air, Will Smith let out such a horrible fart that Jones almost passed out. Still, the movie earned nearly $590 million and kicked off a whole franchise. In Double Jeopardy from 1999, Jones insisted on doing all his own stunts in a freezing river. He had trained with the FBI for the role and didn't want a double, even though he was 56 at the time. During one scene, he got trapped under the water and nearly drowned. The crew had to rescue him. The movie still made $177 million, but it was a close call. In 2005, Jones made The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada, which he also directed. It was a serious film inspired by the real killing of a teenager near the border. Jones took 2 years to prepare, learned Spanish, and worked closely with the writer Guillermo Arriaga, who won Best Screenplay at Cannes. Jones won Best Actor there too. Even though it made less than $10 million, it showed how much Jones cared about art over box office numbers. In No Country for Old Men, released in 2007, Jones played Sheriff Ed Tom Bell. The movie made $171 million and won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. Jones gave the film its heart and weight, especially in his final speech about feeling outmatched by evil. The Coen brothers wrote the role just for him, knowing he could say more with silence than most could with words. By 2010, he was playing an executive in The Company Men, a drama about job loss during the 2008 financial crash. Jones's character had built the company from the ground up and now had to watch loyal employees get laid off. He gave emotional performances that reflected what real people were going through at the time. The movie had a $15 million budget and filmed during real economic uncertainty. In Lincoln from 2012, Jones played Thaddeus Stevens, wearing a big fake black wig because the real Stevens had alopecia. Jones wanted to shave his eyebrows too, but Spielberg said no. Jones delivered fiery speeches and studied Stevens's life for months. His scenes about ending slavery were some of the film's most powerful moments. By 2014, he was back directing and starring in The Homesman. He and Hilary Swank played 2 people transporting mentally ill women across dangerous frontier lands. The movie showed the brutality of pioneer life and tackled subjects like mental illness in a way Westerns usually didn't. It had a $16 million budget and filmed in rough New Mexico weather with real horses and harsh winds. In 2016's Jason Bourne, Jones played CIA Director Dewey, who had ordered Bourne's father's death. The movie made $415 million, but critics said Jones looked exhausted. The script had gone through many rewrites, and some felt like he just didn't want to be there. One reviewer joked that his face looked like the Grand Canyon. A year later, he played a real journalist in Shock and Awe, a film about reporters who challenged the U.S. government's claims before the Iraq War. The film showed how these journalists were the only ones who got the story right. Jones played Joe Galloway, and the real journalists helped guide the film to keep it accurate. They were even on set during filming. In Ad Astra from 2019, Jones played Brad Pitt's missing father, an astronaut who had vanished near Neptune. The movie tried to be as realistic as possible, using zero-gravity training and practical effects. Pitt went through nausea-inducing training while Jones stayed more in the background. The movie made $135 million and was nominated for Best Sound Mixing. In 2020's Wander, he played a conspiracy theorist who co-hosted a podcast with a paranoid investigator. The film touched on MKUltra, border surveillance, and chip implants. It got a low 4.9 out of 10 from over 10,000 IMDb users, but Jones still brought weight to his scenes, and in 2023, something strange happened at the Finest Kind premiere. Jones was standing next to Jenna Ortega and asked her, "Did we have any scenes together?" She had to gently remind him that they did. The moment went viral, and people started wondering if the 77-year-old actor was having memory issues. It was a quiet and uncomfortable moment just 2 days before the film's release. Tommy Lee Jones was never someone who chased the spotlight, but over the years, stories started to build around him. Some were true, some were whispered half-truths, and others no one could really confirm. One of the biggest rumors online was that he turned down roles in Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption, but when you actually look into it, there's no real proof. Tom Hanks turned down Shawshank because he was busy with Forrest Gump, and Tim Robbins got the part, and Pulp Fiction had actors like Michael Madsen and Lawrence Fishburne who passed on key roles. But Tommy Lee Jones, he was never officially attached to either film. No matter what people say online, then there was the claim that he once punched a stuntman on the set of Under Siege and had to quietly settle a $100,000 lawsuit. But again, no actual records show that happened. Under Siege came out in 1992. It was a big hit and made Steven Seagal even more famous. Tommy Lee Jones was in it too, intense as always, but the supposed punch and payout, it just doesn't exist in any of the official records. People close to the production never mentioned anything like that. The film was shot, wrapped, and released with no known problems. Another rumor said Samuel L. Jackson nearly walked off the set of The Sunset Limited because of a clash with Jones. That film came out in 2011. It was small, quiet, and only had 2 actors, Jones and Jackson, sitting in a room talking about life and death. Jones directed it. Some people online claimed Jackson wanted to quit over creative differences, but interviews from the time tell a different story. Jackson later said it was one of his most demanding roles, not because of any drama, but because of the script's deep philosophical themes. Both men respected each other. There was no walkout, no fight. A strange story spread about how Jones broke his arm playing polo in the early 2000s and delayed Men in Black 2. But nothing backs that up. The film started shooting in June 2001 and hit theaters in 2002. The real delays were due to the 9/11 attacks. Parts of the film had to be changed because scenes were set in New York. It had nothing to do with polo, even though Jones has had his fair share of polo injuries, including a bad fall in 1998 that left him unconscious. None of those injuries delayed his work on Men in Black. But one story that is real came from the set of Black Moon Rising in 1986. Back then, Jones was drinking heavily. Linda Hamilton, who acted alongside him, later said she hated working with him because of it. She didn't hold back. She said his drinking affected everything. Jones never spoke publicly about what drove him to drink during those years. He kept that part of his life locked up, but people on set saw the effects. He was just 40 at the time and still trying to solidify his film career. It was a low point for him, both personally and professionally. Jones's personal life had its own share of storms. He married Kate Lardner on New Year's Eve in 1971. She was the granddaughter of famous writer Ring Lardner. She had 2 kids from a previous marriage and gave up her own acting career to support Tommy. But by 1978, it all fell apart. The divorce papers filed on February 9th said he was too obsessed with work. Kate said he barely spent time with the family. The marriage lasted just over 6 years. After the split, Kate started rebuilding her career and eventually became a sound editor in the film world. He married again in 1981, this time to Kimberly Cloughley, a photographer he met while filming Back Roads. They had 2 children. Austin was born in 1982, and Victoria came along in 1991. But during the filming of The Fugitive in 1993, rumors started to swirl. People whispered about an on-set affair. Things got worse the next year during Blue Sky when tabloids claimed he got involved with Jessica Lange. Kimberly filed for divorce in 1996. The court gave her full custody of the kids, a large financial settlement, and ongoing support. What shocked people was how emotional Jones became during the custody talks. He didn't want to lose contact with his kids. The marriage lasted almost 15 years. He met Dawn Laurel in 1995 while filming The Good Old Boys. She was working behind the camera, and they clicked right away. At the time, he was still married, but things were already ending. They showed up as a couple in public by 1998. Then, on March 19, 2001, they got married quietly in Texas. Her sister even designed part of the ranch for them. But in 2024, something changed. Rumors online said Dawn had been diagnosed with something serious. Nothing has been confirmed, but Jones suddenly pulled back from work. At 78 years old, he reportedly told close friends he wanted to stay close to Dawn on their 3,000-acre ranch in Texas. That ranch wasn't his only property. In 2002, he bought a 55-acre polo ranch in San Saba with 48 horse stalls and a pro-level field. But a terrible incident happened in 2010 when a guest was badly injured during a polo match and sued him for $2.3 million. The guest blamed unsafe conditions and poor horse care. Jones fought back. The court ruled in his favor, saying that polo was risky by nature. Even so, he had to pay over $400,000 in legal fees. Back in 1998, at a different ranch near Houston, he had his own scary moment when a horse stumbled and threw him off. The horse stepped on him. He passed out and was rushed to the hospital. 2 days later, he was back watching his team from the sidelines. As for his kids, he keeps them out of the spotlight. Austin acted once, playing a banjo player in Jones's 2014 film The Homesman. He also worked behind the scenes on the soundtrack. After that, he left acting and went fully into music. His albums Dead Calm in 2022 and At the Polo Club in 2023 came out under a small label called Perpetual Doom. He also made music for films like Fanta and Metamorphosis Junior Year. Victoria had a few small roles, too. She showed up in Men in Black 2 when she was just 11 and later in the 3 burials of Melquiades Estrada. At one point, Jones even fired her from a set when she didn't show up on time. The crew had to step in and calm things down. By December 2023, people started to worry. At the premiere of Finest Kind, Jones looked painfully thin and confused. Friends were shocked. His eyes looked sunken, and he even asked Jenna Ortega if they had acted together in the film, forgetting they shared a scene. Jenna gently reminded him. That moment went viral. People began to wonder, was it memory loss? Was he sick? In 2025, rumors exploded. Some said he had cancer. Others guessed Alzheimer's or another illness, but no official statement ever came. Jones has always been private, especially about his health. But the way he looked, the way he spoke, and the way he suddenly stepped away from acting made people fear the worst. Financially, he took a major hit, too. In 2019, he sold his Wellington, Florida, polo estate for $10.5 million. That might sound like a lot, but he originally listed it for $26.75 million in 2013. That's a $15.8 million loss. He bought parts of the property over time. $2.95 million in 2002, $1.1 million in 2003, and another $550,000 in 2012. It had everything: 2 polo fields, dozens of stalls, a staff house. But it just didn't sell. Still, he kept his massive 3,000-acre ranch in Texas with its 150-year-old home, 50 horses, and full cattle operations. Even with all the ups and downs, Jones still has an estimated net worth of $100 million in 2025. He earned it from films like The Fugitive, Henry Fredetweeter, Sadichan Sanaditon, Men in Black, and No Country for Old Men. He also directed, wrote, and produced. In 2012, he got the Donostia Lifetime Achievement Award at the San Sebastian Film Festival, honoring over 70 films and decades of work. That award came when he was still strong and active. Now he stays mostly quiet on his land, far from Hollywood, still respected, still feared, and still full of mystery.